away on the far side with Eichen combining. O'David, Smith.
Flick pass from Jason Smith finds Kevvie Walters. Walters is into space. He's going to score. Kevvie Walters, he scored the first try here in Origin 1 and he's put it down again in Origin 3.
Kevvie David Walters, of course, one of the rugby league legends, won multiple premierships with the Canberra Raiders and the Brisbane Broncos as well. Seeing a fair bit of him on FoxLeague, which has been good.
He's killing it.
Yeah, it's going great. And he's joining us on Sportsday for a Tuesday night. How are you, Kevvie?
How are you, gents?
Going well. Going well.
Very good.
How are you going, Kev? How's life? Life good? Treating you well?
Yeah, going good, yeah. Yeah, really good, thanks. I've got the work on Fox that I do. I do a little bit on the radio, and then I've got a podcast out as well with Ben Dobbins. So
Saw that.
very busy talking about rugby league and everything about rugby league. Same as you guys. It's we love the sport and I love the game. So I'm not coaching. This is the next best thing for me, guys, is commentating on it and talking about rugby league.
A little less stressful, Kevvie?
A lot less stressful, yeah. Rolling into Fox and the like. But look, that's part of the gig, with coaching. It can be a very lonely job as well, coaching, when you get a couple of losses, in the cupboard and things don't seem to be working for you, but it can be stressful. But I love the winning side of it. That's what sort of keeps me in the hunt for jobs and the like. I just love that bit that adrenaline rush that you get from the win, and also helping young players and older players, just get better. Yep. I think that's a good thrill as well.
Yeah. Hey, Kevvie, now post-coaching at the moment, and whether you go back to that or not, that's a decision you'll make in the near future. But did you find it hard initially talking about a club that you love so much, the Broncos, and especially at the start of the year they've had?
Yeah, well, of course it's been difficult. It's hard too with Billy there because we want him to have a great season, as well. So it has been a bit difficult. But look, you've just got to get on with things. That's the way I see it, and I enjoy watching them play and play well because that's at the end of the day. We want the players to do well and the club to do well. I've got no sort of hard feelings there. It's just that's what happens in life sometimes, and we just got I'm just getting on with things, and I'm really enjoying, as I said, my work at Fox. But most of the time I'm covering the Broncos anyway, so it's hard to sort of move away from it, because I'm working in the industry and talking about it all the time. So. But I hope I believe they're going to have a great season. The Broncos, they were, set up for that. Last year I feel that a lot of things sort of players weren't available at different times, key players, and this year they've had a good deck of cards to play with, and if they're all fit and healthy, they're a very good side, and it'll be very hard to beat at the end of the season.
Hey, give us an insight, Kevvie, of what a coach goes through when your team starts the season after 5 rounds. Now, you guys were 5 from 5 from memory, I think, when you went through the grand final. Now, they're 4 from 5. Madge is in sort of the same sort of space. So as a coach, do you start to tweak things and up the tempo a little bit, or do you try and keep it as simple as possible when you've had a really good start to the season?
Yeah, I think keeping it simple works best with players. We've all been players ourselves, and, the simpler you keep it, and the shorter term plan you have, it is week to week. You often hear coaches talking about, their season, and it does come down to week to week. And this week, the Broncos have got the Roosters. Everyone's expecting them to win at home at Suncorp. So those sort of things are the issues that you look at, making sure your players are focused and, focusing on nothing but the next training session or, the next game, whichever it may be. So, I think that's the big key for me is keeping them grounded and also very focused on, what's the next job? What do we go to next?
Now, Kevvie, you had a tremendously successful playing career. And when we all played, the game was very different to the game that we see on the TV today. How did you transition from playing in those days to coaching in the current game? Because it's so fast. It's all about the ruck. It's a different game almost.
Yeah, it is a different game. But unfortunately, I've got kids ranging from 19, my youngest daughter, up to Jack, who's 33. So they've all played at different levels over the time. And, I guess growing up with those kids, you're always, whether you're coaching an under 18 side or a 19s or a 20s or a senior side, you're around the game a lot and looking at the different habits and the different things that come into the game. This season or the last couple of weeks with the shoulder, the contact to the head, with the shoulder or parts of the body, I find that really frustrating as a commentator. I'm sure coaching it would be even more difficult because you've got to be certainly aware of, and we want to make sure that it's a safe game that we play no matter what level. But also there are times in games when people slip, they move their body in a different direction where you don't think they're going to move it. So all sorts of things can happen on the run and very quickly, which enables some contact to the head, which is not great, as I said. But I guess that thing for me is the one that's is the most frustrating at the moment, whether I'm commentating or watching my sons play or any of those things. That makes it quite difficult, I would have thought.
Yeah, it is tough, that, isn't it? I mean, it's a collision sport. We're going to have accidents, and we're seeing players, sin binned and sent off. I think for situations that probably, I'm not completely wrapped about it. But I wanted to ask you, and Sats and I have been banging on about this. We think a low tackle should be rewarded, a good low tackle, and it would probably take a lot of the head contact out because the ruck speed, it's all about ruck speed, right? Trying to control that ruck, get quick play the balls. So that's where the wrestle comes in. If you reward a good legs tackle with some extra time there, I think it might take a few of those head collisions out. What's your thoughts on that, Kevvie?
100% agree. Totally, boys. We've been in the same think cycle because that's, certainly, and you boys are a lot younger than me, but that's how I was taught to play the game, was the leg tackle. 2 in the tackle, 1 around the legs, the other one up around the body, trying to lock the ball up and all those things. But the first thing you get taught as a kid, back in my day, in the early 70s, was to tackle around the legs. Get in low, get your head in the right position, get your feet in the right position and drive with your shoulder, into contact. And then you ended up around the legs. At the back end of the tackle, and then you had time to get to your feet and then get to market. These days, with the way it is, and the players fighting to get to their feet to play the ball, there's no time at all around the legs. If you're on the legs, you're out of play, basically. You're the third man back, and I think it needs to be rewarded because it's a clean tackle, and with some of the guys in the modern game today. Like Kobe Hetherington, for instance, he's the best. Yes. He's so good at that tackle, and he only gets to use it 2 or 3 times, in a game sometimes because of the way the game is and coaches wanting, to play the ball to be controlled and all those things. So, I think you're on a good point there, and I think it would eliminate. I know it would eliminate more of the head contact in tackles. Certainly.
Yeah, well, it would make the coaches coach it, wouldn't it? Now, Ben Hunt, he doesn't get many injuries, Kevvie. Adam Reynolds. Probably, we see him a fair bit now. He's over the last few years, that lower back and hamstring injuries. Throughout this year, now they have got some good depth there. You've got obviously Billy that plays in the halves. You've got Corey Pakes, who's going well at hooker and plays in the halves as well. You've got Ezra to come back. Throughout the year, if there are some niggling injuries with those 2 ageing halves, would you rest them at times during the year?
Oh, I think for sure and certain, both of them, keep them fresh. I mean, the NRL's a tough exercise, isn't it? Playing week in and week out, and I guess as you get older, it becomes more difficult. The contact side of it is the difficult one because the bodies are getting older, and those 2 have made a lot of tackles in their career. I guess that the shoulders and the legs are only meant to make so many tackles, or so many collisions in your lifetime. So they got great depth. Ezra Mam still parked in the garage, fella. He's up on the chocks. He's not even turned the engine yet, So they got great depth in those positions. And certainly when Ezra comes back, again, I'm not coaching there now, but if it was me, I'd be putting Ezra straight back in and shuffling Ben Hunt around somewhere at hooker or somewhere like that. But they are going well. They've got great depth as well in that position. There's Jock Madden still sitting there as well, who's a good young player as well, which no one's seen sight of him yet this year either. So the 2 veterans are getting the job done, aren't they? Yeah,
they are. Now, we're not surprised with how dominant Payne has been, but this Xavier Willison, he's always had great potential, but give us an insight. You've had a fair bit to do with him as he's coming through the ranks. Give us an insight of what kind of athlete this kid is.
Well, he's another good one coming through the ranks at the Broncos. We're seeing more of that again this year. He's been on the development pathway for a few years now. He made his debut a couple of years ago, and is just getting better each time. He's learning the game, learning his craft, learning how he can be really effective. I thought close to the line last week he was good, wasn't he? A couple of plays they put on and he's picked up tries. And he's one of these young guys as well that really loves the game and wants to learn about the game and to be better. Got a great training ethic as well. He's all over it. So he's one for the future. I wouldn't surprise me to see him push his way through there in the next year or two and be a regular starter for the Broncos in that 8 or 10 jumper. He's that good. He's coming through very quickly, and we've seen that this year with some of his form and the way he comes off the bench for the Broncos. He's a great asset for them, to have this time of the year.
Now, Kevvie, halves in the modern era. Do you find they're playing maybe a too structured role at times? Do you think ad-lib football's sort of gone out the window a little bit?
I think for sure and certain. That's the beauty that I like about the Broncos halves. We saw Adam Reynolds, the old chip and chase the other night.
Yeah,
that's gold, isn't it? And he brings that skill to the game. So does Ben Hunt. I think it's important to have structure,
absolutely,
to some degree. But then also, I think one of your halves, and for Alf and if I can go right back, take people right back. Alf didn't like structure at all, so he was no good around structure. But he brought the dynamite, the X factor. Whereas I was a bit more likened to playing the structure. And I think if you've got a 6 and a 7 in that similar way, where one's the organiser and gets the team around the field, and the other one is just dynamic with his attacking skills. I think that's the best combo that I've seen. And over the years, Ricky Stewart and Laurie Daly were a lot like that, weren't they? I think if you're going to get a 6 and 7 together, they've got to have different qualities. They can't all be on the one side of the boat, with all the attacking skills, and they're not playing without structure. So I think it's a good mix for the Broncos. Most clubs have got that, but I guess it's about learning that as well, and putting the good mix together as such.
I know we saw a lot of Alf when he started playing with Ipswich, Kevvie, and then he obviously made his debut and in Queensland and playing in the State League Cup in the Brisbane Rugby League. But I've never heard anything about him as a kid coming through the junior grades. Was he a dominant player as a kid when you guys were growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was a superstar, mate, coming through. He's one of those kids that scored 5 or 6 tries a game. I remember Kerrod and I, this is way back, we were under about 5 or 6 years old, and Alf just ran through us. We were playing up, helping our older brother with numbers to make up the team, and Alf just ran through all of us about 5 times in one half. We just couldn't get near him, couldn't get a hand on him. He's been... I think that's what helped him when he got into senior football. He's always been small. He'd always been a small player, so always playing against bigger kids through the underage stuff, and then getting into senior football, you're used to, tackling bigger men, and you're used to playing with bigger players. So, I think that's, whenever people say, oh, he's too small, just like that Jai Gray at the moment at South Sydney. Well, he's a small player, but he's been small all of his life. It's not like he stopped growing when he was, 15 or something. So, that's why he's been so successful as well. He's always been small, and you have to, when you're tiny like that, to get around people and avoid the contact sometimes of the big men coming out to try and, clean you up. So, yeah, he's been a revolution, hasn't he, for the South this year? He's going great.
I don't know whether he's the same sort of tourist as what Alfie would be, Jai Gray. He'd have to live up to a big
well, we hope he's not either, don't we, gents? Because we've all been trapped in that world.
Got stuck at a roulette table with him in Sky City in Auckland. That was a costly night.
Oh,
jeez.
That would have been the Super League.
It was. Do you remember that night? Oh, it was a blackjack table.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? That was They gave him a shirt, though. He was happy about, which was quite funny.
Expensive shirt, though, from all reports, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was.
I remember Johnny Lang telling me when he was at Penrith that he said if there was one player that drove me insane as a coach during Super League, he said it was Alan Langer. He said I just didn't know how to handle him.
Mate, who does? I don't think anyone
that's
does.
the thing, boys.
Mate,
there was only probably the one coach that I knew that could handle him, and that was Wayne.
Yeah.
We'd be sitting in meetings. This is back in the day, sitting in meetings, and because we trained of an evening, then we weren't fully professional, and Alf would sit in the meeting and just start yelling out things from the back of the room, nothing to do with what was going on in the video, yelling out like neighbours are starting soon, Wayne, we've got to get home, or all this sort of stuff at the back of the room. But only he could get away with it. Anyone else would have been reprimanded or got themselves in trouble. But Alfie used to get away with a fair bit, I can tell you. But the best thing about Alf was on game day, he played well. He was always in our top 2 or 3 players sort of every week. That's how he got away with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You're winning games for your team. You can get away with murder, almost. Well, Alf probably could.
Yeah. Almost.
Now, speaking about Alf, Like he was obviously a go-to man back in the day with the Broncos, and Shane Webke, he gave an insight to that when he did face-to-face with Vonnie on Fox.
Yeah.
Obviously, back in that day, it was Alf. In this day and age with the Broncos, who do you see as the go-to man? Because there's so many stars across the park.
Yeah, well, I reckon Reynolds is the key there. Reynolds, he's got the keys to the car, I would have thought. Certainly in my time there, well, that's one of the reasons why we bought him, was to be that, when times are tough and you need something to happen, it normally was floating around. Reece Walsh can do that as well. He's been a bit quieter this year, though, to start the season. But, Reece was, in my time at the Broncos, he was one of those guys that just sort of seemed to pull things out that not many players can do, whether it's a run or a kick, 40-20. Already belted one of those out this year. So, those sorts of players, him and Walshy and Reno would be the two, I think, at the Broncos. But there's, like you say, there's, Ben Hunt's doing some great things. You've got Tony Staggs there, you've got Selwyn Cobbo there. So, there's a lot of players there. And Payne Haas, what about the form of Payne Haas?
It's
the
ridiculous.
guy that he scored a couple of weeks ago. Yes, crazy stuff.
It's insane.
Mind you, it was a beautiful pass from Billy Walters.
No,
it was.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Hey, Kevvie, thank you very much, mate. Always love catching up with you. Love your work on Fox each and every week, and we'll talk to you throughout the year.
Yeah. Good on you, gents. Thanks for having us. Go the 48.
You betcha.
Thanks for watching. For more great content, subscribe to SEN League, your home of the greatest game of all.